Hello, and thank you for joining us again for this podcast presented by the CuyEast Chamber of Commerce. My name is Ben Holbert, and I am your host today, and we're joined today by Bill Koehler, and he is the CEO of Team NEO. So we got that right, sir?
Yes, and thank you. Thank you very much for having us and letting us share some perspectives with you.
Outstanding. You know, when we first hear the name Team NEO, it might give you some position or thought that it's like an athletic team, but quite frankly, you guys are strictly business. Am I correct?
Well, that's sort of true and sort of not. I mean, we very much are focused on driving growth and prosperity in the 18 counties of Northeast Ohio that include greater Cleveland, Akron, Canton, Youngstown, and some outlying areas. But as you know, economic development is the ultimate team game. So I don't shy away from that name at all. In fact, when we talk about Team NEO, we talk about it from a couple perspectives. One is the 37 of us who show up in the same office every day and do what we do. But it's also the group of partners in the network who are working together to drive common outcomes from aligned strategies. So I wouldn't shy away from that notion at all. I appreciate that.
Okay, good deal. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your strategy? How is this going to work?
Sure, and thank you for asking that. Our strategy is really focused on 4 areas. We've worked really hard with our board and our partner organizations to be increasingly focused on those areas where we think we can have unique impact, and we can knit together our strategies in some ways that complement those of other organizations who we often work with. So what are those 4? Number 1, building resilient supply chains.
Okay.
So we have a group of 6 individuals who are actively calling on companies throughout Northeast Ohio, every day. And we also have partner organizations who are doing, a similar kind of thing. And we are actively trading or exchanging information to figure out where we can bring JobsOhio resources to the table. We can make active referrals of other things that that organizations are doing, et cetera. If you think about that in the narrowest way, it's all about encouraging more business investment.
Okay.
Growth and the resulting prosperity from that through projects that involve incentives, and we measure success in that area by looking at the number of projects we finish. 88 last year.
Oh, wow.
And the incremental jobs, payroll, and capital associated with those. So last year was about 5,700 incremental jobs, about $300 million of payroll, incremental payroll, and about $2 billion of capital through that set of activities. So that's one. The second relates to sites. We can't get more projects if we don't have good sites that meet the standard of the private sector, so that they can generate the returns that they expect. So we are actively working with members of the public sector, private sector, and philanthropy to identify more readily marketable sites, all shapes and sizes. They could be really large, 400, 500 acres, or it could be 10, like you'd see in the communities like yours. And working to help develop those so that we understand the infrastructure. If there is a gap, we understand what it will cost to fill it. And so today, we have about 20 to 25 sites throughout Northeast Ohio we call readily marketable sites here in Cuyahoga County. That means think about Opportunity Corridor, for example, would be a place where we are actively engaged in some of that activity. Talent. We do nothing programmatically of any significance in the talent space. Where we add value is in research. We are bringing research insights to the table for the workforce organizations, for higher ed, so that they understand the workforce supply-demand gap, and so that they can align their strategies to close the gap by accessing different pools of workers. We've done some specific work relating to gender,
Okay.
relating to race, relating to veterans. So how can we tap into those demographic groups to deepen our labor pool? And then the last thing, strategy is around promoting the region.
Got it.
And we talked a little bit about how we find that balance between promoting the region as a whole, but also recognizing the uniqueness of every one of our markets.
So here in Cuyahoga County, specifically on the east side of Cuyahoga County, I know the mayor of Solon, Mayor Kraus, he's got a lot of space out there in Solon, but there's other communities, Beechwood, Shaker, other places to explore. I mean, is your team on the phone calling folks like that?
Our team is actively engaged with many members of the public sector as opportunities arise. The public sector was very involved in the Amazon the warehouse, Fordsville. Mayor Kraus, incredibly helpful in the Swage Lock situation. But the interesting thing is that many people think of us as the organization that helps the really large companies.
Okay.
And while it is true that the larger companies often get more visibility, but if you were to look at our pipeline and our closed projects and take away the outliers of the really large ones and the really small ones, what you would find is the typical project that we do involves about 40 incremental jobs. So these are very much middle market companies who see, and that's 40 incremental jobs over about a 3-year period of time.
Okay.
So these are companies that really see an opportunity to grow, but they're very much middle market companies.
So they can help in that supply chain. I mean, you have a corporation that's building a car, for example, but they need all kinds of different supplies that go inside of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And so a company here in Northeast Ohio, they could jump on that as well if they.
Right.
I think there's a company called MVP Plastics. A friend of mine that I went to college with, he's the CEO, and they found their niche. They're doing different things to help in that supply chain.
We have a lot of companies. We are blessed with close to 7,000 middle market companies throughout the 18 counties. These are companies are very focused. They're really good at what they do. There's tremendous know-how inside these organizations, and we have to find ways to support them. So anyway, so those are our strategies. For anybody who's listening who cares to delve a little deeper, we just released our 2022 Performance and Impact Report, which demonstrates a little bit about our success from a quantitative perspective and a little bit as well from a qualitative perspective. But the one thing I would say, just as a reminder as you read it, we view these as the successes of Team NEO, the 37 of us in the organization, but none of this happens without the help of many other institutions. So it is the bigger Team NEO that can also celebrate some of the successes that we're talking about in there.
Yeah, everybody has a role. Everybody has a part. They can jump on in there. 37 people in Team NEO making it happen.
Yes. Yeah. I'm proud of our colleagues.
Outstanding. So we talked about a lot of things here, Bill. How can Team NEO help me as a business owner?
So Team NEO can help in a number of ways. We can bring relationships and resources. We can bring access to JobsOhio programs. We have expertise to help people figure out how to get things done. What may be a question that some of your listeners are thinking is, how can they help? How can the public sector help? How can other members of economic development help? How can maybe the chamber partners help? And there, I would say, again, a lot of different ways in the moment, helping unlock, impediments to growth or impediments in a process, maybe, support the projects, different aspects of the projects we're dealing with. These are not overly sophisticated sometimes, but the complexity around the number of things that need to get done is often there. And the better we can make the experience for companies who are trying to make investments here, the more likely it's going to be that they ultimately land here or stay here or continue to invest more here. So that's the first thing I would say. There are a lot of times when local leaders get frustrated, let's be honest, when they find out about something that's late. And that's something we try and manage. What a lot of people don't fully appreciate is when companies engage with us or JobsOhio, they are engaging with us because they are confident that we will keep information private.
Confidential.
And that is a competitive advantage we have in JobsOhio being a private nonprofit. It's a competitive advantage that we have in Team NEO and other economic development organizations have. So we have to take advantage of it. We have to honor that. At the same time, there is a right time and a right place, and we navigate that with companies as we go, and making sure those that need to know and have specific areas where they can contribute, that we leverage them. And so, sometimes people get frustrated, and I respect that, but they have to understand we're doing what we need to do in order to make sure we put ourselves collectively in the best position to succeed.
I had a conversation with a gentleman in a government who received a phone call from a major manufacturing company that wanted to relocate to his community, but they made him sign a non-disclosure or ask him to, non-disclosure, and he couldn't talk about it. But when it happened, oh my gosh, it transformed that community. And I would assume that along the way that there, like you just mentioned, you got to keep certain things tight to the vest until they are able to be announced.
Yeah, that's the position we're often in. I think what we ask our partners to do is trust that we're doing our best to navigate these issues, and that it's not personal. And I think the thing that our public sector leaders can do and other economic development organizations can do is engage us regularly so that we are aware of your capabilities, your needs, your challenges, all those kinds of things, your assets, so that as we see opportunities, we are more likely to start fitting the puzzle pieces together in a way that leverage you. If we don't know, we can't help.
You can't help.
And so, that's what you do as partners. That's what you do in a team.
That's what you do in a team.
And I am proud of the progress we're collectively making in that regard, but we got to keep continuing to push that.
Well, yeah, because, like you said, it takes a team effort. Now, how far is your reach? Are you just in Northeast Ohio, or how far does Team NEO go?
So we go as far as the eastern border, as far up to the west, Sandusky and areas around there, as far south as Tuscarawas, Mansfield, and as I say, includes Greater Cleveland, Akron, Canton, and Youngstown.
Outstanding. I attended a meeting the other day, and a representative of Team NEO was there. Manufacturing and technology, are those the prime points, or do you do a lot more than just that?
No, we do more than that. It just so happens that manufacturing and manufacturing technology are very prevalent in our economy. That's the nature of the economy. But there are a number of industries that are very prevalent. Think healthcare, think specialty chemicals, advanced manufacturing, things that we bend, break, mold, and those kinds of things. You would consider technology, financial services, and then there's certainly a catch-all that we call corporate headquarters, and think about that as sort of high-value white-collar jobs.
I see.
Back office and corporate headquarters and things like that.
I see. Now, when your team is going out, and you're trying to lure businesses to Northeast Ohio, how competitive is that marketplace? I would assume that the Carolinas, Florida, and other states are doing the same thing that you're trying to do with Team NEO.
It's an increasingly competitive market for sure. And we think about it from two perspectives.
Okay.
From an attraction perspective, there are many communities who are leaning in with their public sector colleagues to attract businesses to their communities. On any given day, depending on the industry, we might be competing with any of our Midwest peers, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Cincinnati, Detroit, St. Louis, any of those.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a number of times when we're competing against Nashville, Charlotte, maybe places in Florida, Austin, and then, of course, always Boston, New York, and those. So we think about them in different ways, but where we have competitive strength,
Okay.
Where we understand industries and we have related assets and we have higher ed capabilities, talent-related capabilities to support businesses, we win our fair share.
All right, because, how many universities? I think we have 10 or 15 universities right here in the Northeast Ohio area. So,
well, we think about it as bigger than that. In the 18 counties, we have about 25 higher ed institutions, and think of that as 4-year and 2-year institutions, community colleges and the like. That's one of the interesting things about Northeast Ohio. When you look at the 18 counties, we have integrated supply chains,
Okay.
25 higher ed institutions, 4.3 million people, 2 million workers, a $230 billion economy. When companies are outside of our region, look at that critical mass, they are surprised at how large it is.
Okay.
And if you think about it as one MSA instead of the 4
Okay.
that it is, if it's one, it's the 15th largest market in the country.
Son of a gun.
That's why we sell it that way. The critical mass is valuable. However, everybody picks an address. They
Okay.
pick a community. They might pick yours, right? And they do that based on the logistical assets that you have, the transportation assets, proximity to different strategy capabilities that they value, all those kinds of things. So we weigh both.
Okay.
We try and sell both to help companies figure out where the best place to land would be for them.
And we have a lot of physical things that are unique to Northeast Ohio. We have a beautiful lake, the Great Lakes, Lake Erie, and then also there's rail that's going through here. So those are things that you could use as selling points when you're going out talking to companies that are sort of on the fence about what they want to do?
Those are two of some of the big ones. There we have, as I said, 4.3 million people, 2 million workers. In the conversation now with companies, number one or number two, talent or sites, access to a site. And so our work is to make sure that we are working with communities to invest in those assets so that they are best positioned to shine when we highlight them. And it's not intuitively obvious to a lot of people what the level of need or expectations that companies have when they engage us in these conversations. And so we have expertise on our team. We are able to tap into a wider network of expertise in the private sector, the public sector, philanthropy, economic development partners to bring all that together so we crystallize the attributes that make up our assets, and then we're in a better position to sell them.
Outstanding. And one of the questions I asked, also thought about Intel. Went down to Licking County and the middle part of Ohio, and there might be some people that says, well, doggone it, how come it didn't come to Northeast Ohio? But there's still a silver lining to Intel being in Ohio. Am I correct?
Oh, there's definitely a silver lining. I'm going to share the bigger story. What a lot of people don't know is the Intel discussion actually started in Northeast Ohio.
Okay.
It started through the good work of a city council person in Lorraine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she took the initiative, Mary, took some initiative to reach out to Intel when she heard that there was maybe an opportunity. And she got the conversation started. So I give Mary a lot of credit for the initiative. Mm-hmm. The other thing that a lot of people don't know is when we found out really quickly that they had a series of specifications that were 30 or 40, I don't know, and there's a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have the site that was large enough in the period of time that they required it. So we had a choice. Do we keep looking and maybe miss the opportunity to have Intel come to Ohio, or do we work with JobsOhio and see if somebody else had that site? And it turned out that JobsOhio felt that Columbus might be able to be competitive. Now, we were told initially at the time that Ohio was not on their list.
Okay. Wow.
So we went from Mary and her initiative to a conversation about potentially Northeast Ohio, quickly to a conversation then about what ended up being the Columbus option. Mm-hmm. And that's because of the network we have built locally and at the state level to bring all this stuff together. It's a great, great example of how we work as a team, going back to your original point, to make things happen. That doesn't happen naturally in other states.
You know, and the thing that's so interesting about it, not only is the governor of the state of Ohio so excited that Intel is coming, but I've also heard President Biden also talk about it. So now we're on the national platform in the state of Ohio having Intel come in, and now people can see some other things that are available in Northeast Ohio, Central Ohio, and whatnot through the whole state.
So I would say there are two aspects of that are worth noting. Let's start at the state level. We are fortunate to have a governor or lieutenant governor who are very aligned with JobsOhio, and because of the JobsOhio network, we are very aligned strategically with them. So information can flow, resources can flow in ways that quickly, and we can bring resources to the table, a broader set of relationships to the table. We can make decisions faster than you might find in other states. With respect to what's going on at the federal level, I mean, clearly the Biden administration is very supportive of the CHIP Act, as have other members of Congress. But that's just one example. There's a lot of money in motion right now at the federal level around infrastructure, around workforce, diversity and inclusion initiatives relating to all those. And I would say we are very fortunate to be on the radar of many public officials at the federal level for a number of reasons. I think the Intel example shows that you have a partner in Ohio.
Yes.
We are seen as having a very welcoming, accessible business community. We happen to be a community that has many of the old challenges of Midwest industrial custom environments, but yet we have a manufacturing base, embedded workforce know-how that is critically important to our long-term economic and I would say national security interests going forward. As you think about onshoring and resource shoring and controlling your supply chains, we have NASA, we have
aerospace technology,
and all that stuff. So all those kinds of things, I think, are helping outsiders see that Ohio matters, and we have to take advantage of that.
You know, and I'm sure that, we're talking to the chamber members pretty much here. And some may have smaller businesses. They may have 100 employees, 50 employees, 25. But the supply chain for an Intel, a supply chain for a major Fortune 500 company, we have, as you mentioned before, we have the employees. We have the talent base here to help.
Yes. I would say what we're learning about the Intel opportunity is over time we think it'll have significant tentacles into Northeast Ohio through the supply chain, through the talent, as you say, and other things. But we also think that there are going to be some supply chain companies, maybe even another fab manufacturer,
yes,
who says, hey, we want to benefit from the infrastructure that's being built here. We want to access the water.
Okay.
Water's a big factor in manufacturing semiconductors. So if that's the case, then we have to think about how we prepare Northeast Ohio to compete. What I would say to your colleagues in the chamber world, look at your capabilities, look at where you are, and say to yourself, what can I add to that? If you're a bedroom community, be a great bedroom community.
Okay.
If you have a very large commercial base that might be tied to that, make sure you're investing in that.
Okay.
Because in order to be competitive, we're going to need the communities in a wide radius to contribute in some way. And the more we can bring that team together to make sure that we are competitive, the better chances we're going to get.
And when you talked about Mary and Lorraine, I mean, she came up with an idea, she had a vision, she had a thought, but she shared it. And if somebody has an idea, should they come to Team NEO? Should they come to JobsOhio? Or should they come? Who should they come to?
I would say we're always willing to hear ideas. Our role is to help JobsOhio get access to the various resources and relationships in the community. So I would say, start with us. But honestly, there's no wrong door. If somebody has a great relationship with one of your chamber partners who understands more about us or many of the other economic development organizations in the community, go to where you're comfortable if that's what you want to do. But we obviously will take all comers who have really good ideas. We don't have the monopoly on the best ideas. And there's certainly a lot of people out there with relationships and capabilities we can leverage.
Yeah, I've heard it. All it takes is one idea to take you to the top with your business.
Well, that's what Mary proved.
She proved that.
Yeah.
And that is so important. And I mean, there's so many people around Northeast Ohio, we've seen it before where they've jumped in and they've been able to make a difference in the economy. So, we're pretty excited about that. And one of the other things, you were on the board of College Now, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
College Now is a tremendous program trying to help those young people who need mentors as they go on. But, as we talk about that brain drain again, we've got to keep our talent, or we really need to keep our talent in Northeast Ohio. What do you think are some of the things that should be on top of mind for our elected officials, for our business, our chamber, for everybody to keep those folks here? Well,
let me first give a little shout out to Lee Friedman and team, as well as a few others. John Zitzner at Breakthrough Charter Schools, where I was involved in the Friends Group, and Urban Community School, where I was also a board member for some time. I got involved in each of those organizations because of this issue. I was fortunate to have parents who made sure that I had a good education and made sure I did my homework and all those kinds of things. And these are organizations who, in many ways, do that same thing, but they do it with students and families who confront many challenges every day. So the work is really important, and anything we can do in economic development or the public sector to support that work, I think really, really important. As I said earlier, talent is the number one or number two issue that comes to mind when companies think about investing here for the first time or investing again here if they're already here. And the more that we can think about understanding encouraging development of student interest in not the jobs we have today, but the jobs of the future. critically important. I'll give you one simple example. My colleague, Jacob Duritsky, who is known for his research in this area, he was talking to a young man, I think he was like in 6th or 7th grade, and he said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And this young man said, "I think I'd like to be a policeman or a detective or something." He said, "That's really interesting. Do you like computers?" And he said, "Yeah, I like computers." He said, "Well, what about cybersecurity?"
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So now you're getting a young man to think about a totally different thing, right? You can do that same kind of thing when you start talking about manufacturing. A lot of people have an idea of manufacturing as being dirty and loud and all those kind, and it is in some cases, but in many cases it's very different today than it ever one would have ever imagined. So how do we capture the imagination of these young folks and give them experiences in internships, co-ops, that allow them to challenge their perceptions and also imagine how they can be productive, engaged, individuals as they not just get a job, but they start thinking about building a career. Those kinds of things are really important. In all this, you asked about talent attraction. We've got a great environment here for young people. We have a great value proposition for maybe young people who grew up here like I did, moved away for a time, but when it was time to do something else from their family perspective, they came back. So we can appeal to those who boomerang back, but I think we can appeal also very well to those students who are here in our higher ed institutions, 2-year, 4-year experience, whatever it is. And if they came here from somebody else, think about it as a 2 or a 4-year interview.
Okay.
So that they understand our community and why this is a great place to grow a career. Or if they are here and lived here, make sure they understand why they should stay here. And so there are a number of things that a number of our organizations are working on in that regard.
You're looking into the crystal ball. What does it look like 5-10 years from now? So
I would say this, and we don't say this enough. The opportunity Ohio, and because of its strength, Northeast Ohio, it's the strong role it plays in Ohio, I think right now is just tremendous. We talked about Intel, that's one. There's a lot going on in EV. There's a lot going on in additive manufacturing, 3D printing. There's a lot going on in polymers. These are all battery technology. These are all things that we are very well placed in from a manufacturing perspective. And we've got to find ways to continue to encourage it, push the boundaries of our capabilities there. So, and then also find different ways to make the companies or encourage the adoption of that in the manufacturing processes, new value propositions, all those kinds of things. That takes a set of capabilities, takes talent. It takes, better investment, site-related investment. We have to tell our story better, all those kinds of things, and that's what we're focused on. I really believe that that our economy will change significantly because of Intel. I think it will change significantly as EV becomes more embedded in auto and other vehicles, of which many, we make, or the major components we make. I think air mobility, creates some interesting dynamics that will encourage us to want to build things that are harder, more rigid, yet lighter. And that takes you to polymers.
Exactly.
And other types of materials capabilities. It's all here. Yeah. We got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, our neighbors to the north in Canada, they're working on a lot of EV, electric vehicle technology and whatnot. The folks in Canada, I was up there a couple of months ago, got a chance to see some of the fascinating things that they're doing, not only in the manufacturing realm, but also educating students to come through that pipeline. Yeah. So it's a big economy.
It is. And one of the other things that I should say we're learning a lot about is sustainability. Our companies will not be competitive long term if we don't meet the challenge of sustainability. The federal push is there. The global, sort of coalition around the sustainability issues are there. And whether you're a large company or a small company, you got to be thinking about different ways to create products that are sustainable, to limit the footprint, and I think there's opportunity there to create some value propositions that might be unique. But even if you're not doing that, you've got to make sure that you are competitive and you're providing the kinds or meeting the demands of your suppliers and your customers, so that you can be competitive.
It's a competitive marketplace, but we got the right team. We got Team NEO. So I'm excited, Bill. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. And I'm sure if people would like to get back in touch with Team NEO, or maybe they have an idea, what should they do?
Feel free to reach out to me or look. We're our partners on our website, teamneo.org, and sort of engage. I guess that's all I can say. This is the ultimate team game. That's where we started, and I really believe that. So the more we can all work together in pursuit of common objectives through aligned strategies as best we can, the better off we're going to be, and we've got a great opportunity ahead.
All righty. Thank you so much, Bill Koehler. We appreciate you, sir, and best wishes to you and Team NEO. And let's go. Let's go, team. Let's do it.
Thank you.
This podcast was made possible with the support of our sponsors. Find more ways to grow at CuyEast.org.